All right, Steve, I think it's time to get started. What do you think?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, let's do it. Hey, how are you? I'm Mike Leonard. We're with Launching Leaders. This is Steve Hitz. We are excited to be with you today to talk to you about Launching Leaders and Leadership by Light, this book that Steve authored. Just a little bit about Launching Leaders first. This is our first ever Facebook Live event, so we hope we do well. But if we don't, you'll let us know, I'm sure. But this is going to be fun. We're going to talk about what we do at Launching Leaders, and that is our whole emphasis is empowering the millennial generation and others who'd like to join us. But we want to help you connect proven principles, faith, and everyday life. I want to connect those together, and we provide an online course to do that. We provide a book, which Steve is the author of, and we're looking to help you in your success and your fulfillment, that you can achieve your potential. That's what it's all about, and so we provide these tools to do it. And so today we're going to hear from Steve Hitz, the author of Leadership by Light, Principles that Empower. And he is an entrepreneur. He is the founder and CEO of an insurance company that he's now retired from. He hired over, get this, 10,000 millennials in his lifetime there. I'd say that qualifies him alone, but he's also done extensive research, has worked with millennials in his own ministry, and he's an expert on this stuff. So we're going to turn this over to him, but just before we do, please comment. Please give us your comments. We'd love to have any input or thoughts that you have, and we'll answer your questions towards the end of this session. So, Steve, I think that's up to you now to make this work.
I'm excited.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
So this is our first. We thought, well, maybe this is a little too sterile. We were watching some others do some of these Facebook Live events, and we just saw one where a couple of guys were in bed having some pillow talk with Adobe listeners. So maybe the next one will be pillow talk with Mike Leonard. I don't know. Hey, I wanted to tell you how much passion I have for the 20 and 30 somethings. I'm not maybe so much of an expert on the topic from the 10,000 or so millennials that came through our workforce over 27 or 8 years. Maybe even more so the 5 millennial children that Ginger and I have and their spouses. And we are just thrilled with the mindsets and the things that you bring to our bear and really all generations. I wanted to also tell you what a privilege it is to interact with people of all faiths, and how that fabric of faith is so warm to cloak ourselves in. I wanted to also thank, we had 6 test courses or so over the last 6 months on 4 continents, from New Zealand to Ghana to Manchester, England, and the United States. And we learned so much from this experience. And over this time, a few topics from the curriculum that we teach in Launching Leaders and the book kind of bubbled to the surface that really caught your interest. And I wanted to expand on those a little bit today in our time together. I'm also going to be telling you a aviation story that I don't think you'll ever forget, and I'm really glad that I'm alive to tell it. I was the pilot at the time, and so we'll tell that aviation story as we go along. Let's start with the topic of charting your course. That's a part of the curriculum, charting our course, taking control of our lives, creating a plan for our lives. Now, I think I like to say I'm a full-time boomer, part-time millennial, but I really have the heart of a millennial. And I think I understand your heart and how you think. So when I hear the word plan, for all my life, and maybe it's because I'm an entrepreneur, I kind of shudder. My wife knows I hate that. Look, she would say, Steve, what's the plan? Oh, I don't know. One time I convinced her to not plan a vacation, and all of our 5 children and my wife, we got in a van, and the only plan was to drive south. That's what we did. For a couple of weeks, we just drove around. We had no idea what we were going to do from day to day. We just let it happen. Well, maybe someplace in between that plan for our vacation and our plans for life, there's a happy balance that will allow you to feel like you're making a plan for your life, but not being boxed in. I know that that's a real concern. You don't want to be boxed in, and sometimes that's the fear. If I make a plan and I articulate it, and this month I'm going to do this, and this year I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get this degree and do this, and you follow that, and at the end of your plan, what if you're not happy? What if it didn't bring you the measure of success and peace that you wanted? Well, that's one of the dangers, fears that you have of being boxed in. But let's talk about a few things that will allow you to progress without being boxed in. First of all, understand that a plan is not a mandate. No, it's not a mandate. It's just a guide. Also, understand that, and we teach this in our curriculum and launching leaders, that while we have a vision for ourselves in life, we should also consider our spiritual side of life, and maybe there's a vision that God has for us, and maybe we should align those so that we're maximizing our success. We believe that to be the case, and I invite you to consider that thought. Now, what if you just get in a boat and allow the ocean waves and the currents to just take you where they will? Maybe it's a plan just to get in the boat, but aside from that, if that's your only plan, it's really probably not going to take you to where you want to be. Now think about raising the sails in this boat and actually allowing those sails to be filled with knowledge, your spirituality, mentors, and you fill those sails and you direct the path. Just because you're directing the path and you have your sails full of wind, you're in the boat, it doesn't mean that you're locked in. You can always change course. In fact, sometimes when we align our vision with God's vision for us, sometimes we do have to change course. We're inclined to do so, and it's a good thing. Sometimes there's a fear that says, okay, I'm boxed into this plan. It didn't go as I had wanted. Now what do I do? And the question I would ask, which came to us from one of our great associates and launching leaders, Betsy Sabanato, she said, how big is your God? And so I would invite you to consider that. If the plans don't go just as you thought, you can adjust the sails. You are discovering your true identity. You can connect with your spiritual side and readjust the course. Okay, I think I'll take this time right now to tell my little aviation story and show you how it ties in. So I had a plane somewhat like this. I had a glass cockpit, and it was a tail dragger also, just like this. And I was flying back from my parents' home in northern Wyoming, back to Colorado, and it was a beautiful mid-morning day. The sun was shining through the cockpit. It was beaming off my face. I had music coming through my noise-canceling headset. I had the airplane perfectly trimmed. The air was glass, not a ripple in the air. And the drone of the engine was perfect. I had it tuned perfectly. Anyway, I was so comfortable and enjoying this flight so much that I fell asleep. Now, mind you, I'm the pilot and only passenger of this airplane. It wasn't a very big airplane. And somewhere over Laramie, Wyoming, I was shaken and woken up by severe turbulence. When I woke up, I was inverted, diving toward Laramie, Wyoming. I was about 5,000 feet above the ground at the time. So immediately the adrenaline kicked in, and all of the training I had, for events such as this, which you never hope that you have to use, kicked in and started going through my head. But I had to quantify it because everything was opposite. If I were falling out of the sky and I was right side up, I'd pull the stick back. I'd try to gain altitude and apply some power. But in this position, I had to pull back the power. I had to push the stick forward so that it would level the airplane, and then slowly roll it over, and then I could pull back, add power, right rudder so I didn't spin, all those things. Well, about 500 feet off of the ground is where I was able to pull up and save myself, basically. I want you to know that I didn't fall asleep from there all the way home, and I never was tempted to fall asleep in an airplane again. But the lesson I learned from that I want you to apply to charting your course is that there are things that we can learn in our lives that are really relevant, and we can apply them as we need them, and really save ourselves, literally, from ourselves sometimes as we progress through life. There are lots of other analogies that you can draw from that experience, but those are some of them. Don't get too comfortable. Don't let life lull you to sleep, thinking that everything is just hunky-dory. And challenge yourself, to learn more, to be proficient, to practice, to apply the principles that we teach in Launching Leaders. I'd like to talk about one other thing that has been a concern through the test courses, and that is what we call congruence. We live in a world today where every generation is finding it easier to live in what I call the gray area. Imagine that you're driving through fog, a pretty thick, dense fog. Well, obviously, you don't really have a clarity on what's before you. You see images, but it's not a very clear path. And that's what it's like, kind of trying to live in the gray area of life. What we hope that we learn through the principle of congruence is to be authentic. Now that's a word that your generation loves, and I love it. And I love who you are in the authenticity of who you are. Well, you can't be authentic. You can't have authenticity if you're not congruent. So what I mean is that, if you try to live a different life at home than you have at work, than you have at church, that you have at a party with your friends, if those are all different personalities of yourself, that is not congruent. And you might ask yourself, well, so what? That's kind of what the world is today. Why do I have to even worry about being congruent? Think about how much simpler life will be if you don't have to worry about what personality that you have to appear to be to different groups of people. You'll have more peace. You don't have to remember, the different things you said to someone because you said something different to someone else. Congruence allows the fog to burn off, and it brings clarity to your life and peace to your life, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful way to live. So that's been a concern for millennials who have taken the course, and the reports back is that they've loved the way that they have been able to embrace this challenge, which is a lifelong challenge of being congruent, of living. I think maybe the motto would be, I am who I am in every setting of life, and that's what people will see, and that's just the way it is. So that's something that we can strive for. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about financial fitness. This has been a real popular topic in the curriculum. It's allowed a lot of millennials to finally understand some meaning behind this. Now, one of the things that we ask, and it's in the book, is we ask a millennial to comment on what their idea of financial fitness was. And what it is our generation, the boomers and the Xers, we wanted to always provide a better life for you, our children. And that's really the goal of every parent. And in that quest, we worked hard, we lived good values, but I think our focus was more about abundance in terms of accumulation and not meaningful experiences. Even though that wasn't probably our intent to start with, that's what a lot of times it ended up to be. And so millennials would say, we saw this lifestyle and our parents really tried to provide well for us, but in the end we spent very little time with them. And so in today's world, the millennials, you, are trying to find that proper balance. Well, I want to say that the principles that we teach of financial fitness are really not about accumulation, they're about stewardship. So we connect financial fitness to our spirituality and understanding that if I really manage my resources well and I understand where they came from and I'm humble about it, this stewardship then takes over an aspect of our life that allows us to create meaning in our financial realm. There's been some confusion perhaps on, we teach about setting up different accounts to manage your finances and so forth. And I'll simplify it. You have a paycheck, or if you have your own company, you pay yourself. In some way or another, you have to have money to live. And that's one account that you have. And from that account, you create your budget, your living expenses. And of course, hopefully, you're always earning a little bit more than you have expenses, and so that you have room for other things. The next account is what we call the independence account. And this is where you pay yourself first. That's a great principle to learn that we teach, is to pay yourself first. And that account is never touched. That's it. You're not going to raid that account for anything. That's the goal. Then you'll set up a savings account for non-reoccurring expenses, which would be, say, well, those are surprises, A tree falls on your truck. Got to get it fixed. There's an insurance cost that I didn't expect. Non-reoccurring expenses, you have a savings account for that. And you decide how much you put in there. And then a savings account for a wish list. Maybe you have a desire to, go to Tibet and provide service there. Well, that's going to cost some money, so go ahead and put that in a wish list that may be available someday for that. Now, the money that you put in the independence account, the idea is that will always be invested. So when you accumulate a little nest egg in that, then you invest into the independence account. And that account is also never touched. The profits of those investments are just put back into other investments or the same investments to keep that nest egg growing. And that's why it's called the independence account, because someday you hope that that account, the investments in that account will sustain your life in the manner that you desire. So financial fitness is really all about your desires coupled with perhaps God's desires for you and what you want to do in that stewardship of finance. And you'll get a lot more details, of course, in the book and in the course. Let's see. I think now's probably a good time, Mike, to take a few questions if you have a few. We've invited you to send some of your comments and questions our way, and I'll let Mike articulate them, and together we'll try to answer them for you.
Fantastic. So we have had some questions that we've fielded in the past, as well as we invite any that you have right now. But one of the things that I hear from millennials a lot is that I really need to understand this whole congruence thing. I play so many roles in my life, and I even had one tell me, I'd rather be, a certain person at work, and then when I go home, I want to be someone for my family, and then if I go to a church service, I'll put on my church face. What What inherently is wrong with that, Steve? Why can't you sort of play those roles differently?
I think that's a good question. But the reason you can play that life, you can live that life. The question is, does it bring you a holistic life? Does it make you feel complete? Is it an authentic life? Does it bring you peace? And the answer to those questions is no. No, it really doesn't. It might make you popular for a time, but that's not real happiness. That's not the holistic life that our millennials want.
So, when you talk a holistic life, what does that really mean to you? What are we looking for in a holistic life?
You hear the phrase a lot, work-life balance. I think our millennial friends have defined that in a better way than any other generation. And so I think it includes something of your spiritual, physical, emotional makeup, kind of all coming together in a work-life balance that it just makes us happy, and we're an authentic, holistic person.
You know, a number of younger people that I talk to, they like to sort of live free and not have lots of boundaries, not box themselves in. If you're saying in your book that you need to chart a course or make a plan, I know you talked a little bit about this already, but how do I feel not so bound down by that plan? How do I feel like I can still be free to move and make decisions and make changes, but if I'm bound down by this plan, it feels a little heavy to me.
Well, I think what you do is you consider waypoints. That's an aviation term. When we fly from point A to B, there may be several little spots in between that we're charting our course by. Maybe a mountain range we want to fly around. It may be some identifying marker that we can connect to. And so we go from these points with several other points in between. While you're on the journey, you can kind of see how it's going. You don't have to arrive at the destination you started at. As long as you're going toward it and seeing how it feels, I think some things come with time, and sometimes they're surprises. I'd ask you, how many people work in the degree or discipline that they were trained in college? It's, unless you're a doctor or an attorney or an accountant, it's a very small percent. The college experience gave them something that they can chart their course from in life, but it didn't create the destination.
So,
did that make sense?
It does. And so, what you're saying then is what would you suggest? Would you suggest a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan? How would you suggest they do that?
And maybe that depends on where you're at the moment. But maybe you start with a daily plan. Maybe part of that daily plan is to establish what I call a daily devotional. And in that devotional, you have some time for meditation, some time for prayer. Maybe you invoke some music, some exercise. You have a space of time that is yours for the day, where you can kind of connect with yourself and God. I think that's the first waypoint that you would want to do every day. And then from there, I think you'll be impressed at the direction that you should go. Whether it's starting with a 1 month, 6 month, eventually you might have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year plan. But that's up to you. Don't let people box you into that plan. Some will say, well, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Well, I'd like to be alive. I'd like to be doing something that that I'm passionate about, like this. Some of those answers are just impractical to ask now, but you can still have an overarching idea.
Okay. So akin to that is concerns regarding financial future. I mean, there are a lot of financial planners out there, a lot of people who are suggesting maybe models similar to what you suggest. How do I, if I'm a young person just starting out, how do I really fit a financial plan into a budget that I barely have enough money to survive? And I mean, did you go through any of that in your early years?
Yeah. Ginger and I did make a 5-year financial plan. And at the start of that plan, and literally listed on the paper, were the types of dates that we could afford. And when we started out, a date to us was going to 7-Eleven. For those in other countries, that's a little convenience store. And we would get a Slurpee, I think it was like 39 cents, and 2 straws. And we would both get to enjoy the Slurpee while we'd take our little walk through the park together. And that was our date. That's really all we could afford and still be able to put aside something for the other plans that we had. So start where you are. It doesn't have to be big. And what you'll find is that time is on your side. You know, sometimes when you're starting out and you're young, 5 years seems like, oh man, that's such a long time. But that little 5-year plan we had for our life at the time financially was what launched us into other things that provided for our family.
So we've got a question from Juan Botero. Thank you, Juan, for the question. He's asking about, you know, he's read other leadership books, and he's read and looked at Leadership by Light. What's the difference? I mean, there's lots of leadership books out there. What makes this different from others?
This particular one, Leadership by Light, is a compository of experiences of a lifetime of really many folks. It's not really just a financial book. I've read hundreds of financial books and business books. You should see my library. I love to read. And so I've been able to cull from all of those resources things that I think fit together in a very unique and empowering way. I think the difference is that when you actually read the book, Leadership by Light, you'll find that it is so empowering in your language and pulls from so many aspects of things you've heard little things about perhaps, but in a different way. I don't think there's any book on the earth that combines these principles of success with an alignment with faith in your daily walk.
So if you're not necessarily a religious person, maybe you grew up and you were in a religious family, but you've decided to go elsewhere. Is your experience that, does this book suit someone who's not necessarily attending a church every Sunday, but still has some spirituality about them?
Absolutely. In fact, the millennial world that we're speaking to today pride themselves on being spiritual, but not necessarily religious. And so whether you worship in a particular denomination or whatever, I think the key is that these principles will connect to your spirituality and they will empower you in that way.
I think that's really the nugget that makes this different, in that we want you to engage with your faith, whatever that is, and learn some proven principles that will enable that faith. So take financial fitness, take setting habits in your life, take charting a course in your life, and apply that and say, all right, how do I do this and how does God fit into this picture? That's, I think, the nugget and one of the critical differentiators for this book.
I think so. Mm-hmm. Thanks for that question.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, we're gonna wrap up here, but I want to show you the book. I know it shows backwards, but this is Leadership by Light: Principles That Empower. It's available on Amazon. Just look up Leadership by Light on Amazon. You can get it there. We also have a course, Launching Leaders. It's on your screen there. llworldwide.org/courses. That will take you to our course page, and you can enroll online, or you can start a group. If you want to start a group, go to the leader page on our website, and you can see how to start a group. This is a really enriching thing. As Steve said, we've taught these classes all over the world and are now taking it online. And the whole idea is you can either take the class online yourself and read the book, or you can do it in a group, take the class online, and then talk about it together as a group, with one group together. So Leadership by Light, I'd highly, obviously recommend it. Look it up on Amazon, or look it up on our website, llworldwide.org, and look at the book section. Our next session that we're going to have is going to be with one of our good friends, Dave Hickman. Dave Hickman is on our advisory council, and he is an expert in and of himself in many topics, including mentorship. And Dave is going to speak about mentorship. And Dave has his own book called Closer Than Close. You can see it on Amazon too. Dave is a wonderful, devout Christian individual, and we love to hear from Dave on February 15th next month. We'll send out the times, etc., but February 15th, Dave Hickman will be with us. So we want to thank you so very much for participating in our first ever Launching Leaders Facebook event. We will post this on our Facebook site for those who haven't been able to see it. And we will visit with you again next month. Oh, by the way, before I forget, if you go to our courses page on our website, we are offering a $20 discount off the regular price for the course. You need to enter a code, which is on that page now. It's Launch 2007. If you enter Launch 2007 at the end, when you check out, you'll receive a $20 discount. What did I miss, Steve? Anything?
I think that's a great start. Thank you for joining us. I think we formed a new tribe, and we hope it grows into the hundreds and thousands. Thanks for your time, and know that we love you.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.